Hi, welcome to the Doctors Who podcast. We are covering Mistborn, the Final Empire. This is chapters 11 and 12. We're going to summarize what happened, and then we're going to dive into our thoughts, our impressions, and where we think this might go to next. We hope you'll stick around. Thank you. Okay, again, we are the Doctors Who podcast. My name is Chris.
I'm Chip.
I'm Brian.
And we are covering chapters 11 and 12 of Mistborn, the Final Empire.
This is our Christmas episode.
It is our Christmas episode. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. If you are completely anti-holidays, happy normal day of the week. Happy Wednesday.
Happy December 25th.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
July
July 4th, whatever you end up watching.
We're all-encompassing, all-inclusive. That's what we do here. So let's jump right into the synopses of the chapters.
All right, so chapter 11, this is after it is discovered that Cayman's lair has been attacked or basically assaulted by the Inquisitors. So some of the crew go to investigate the destroyed lair. Among the corpses, Vin notices Ulef's corpse. It appears as if someone has ripped his ribcage apart with bare hands. Off to the side, Sazed recites a prayer of the Kazi religion. Milev's body is found tied to a chair with strong evidence that he's been tortured.
And Milev was the one Kelsier put in charge,
Right,
correct?
he's the one that he kind of put him in charge after he kicked Cayman out, and they told him to go make him a beggar. So, after leaving the lair, Kelsier tries to find Cayman among the beggars to see if he was killed too. Kelsier finds Cayman's corpse, wrists and ankles tied together, body tortured, and hung from a hook that is rammed through his mouth and out his neck. Vin successfully tailed Kelsier, and they spoke briefly after they found Cayman's corpse. At that point, Kelsier says that method of execution is reserved for those who abuse allomancy or misuse it. So that means that Cayman likely knew that Vin was also at least a misting. So if Cayman was an allomancer. Chapter 12, this is where Vin heads off to the ball at Keep Venture. Keep Venture is the one that Kelsier robbed a couple chapters ago, which I think would have been a couple months ago in the timeline. Sazed drives the carriage. Kelsier drops in while the carriage is en route and gives Vin some advice, and then jumps back out into the mists. Vin arrives at the ball, is introduced, gets scared at the initial attention, and then realizes that Valette Reynaud is who the nobles are seeing and not really Vin herself. During dinner, Vin sees her father, an obligator, across the room, and he's witnessing an exchange between two young nobles. Reen, Vin's brother, had identified him to her when she was younger. Vin declines some invitations to dance extended by various nobles, then takes a break and heads upstairs to the balcony, which overlooks the hall. Vin has her first conversation with a boy named Elend, which shocks Sazed when he hears about it.
So there's a lot that goes on in these two chapters.
Yeah, and these are two very different chapters when you think about the violence and the gruesome nature of what they found in the lair versus the real opulence and kind of formality and the general kind of upbeat tone. Not upbeat, but just
the different world of the upper echelon of this culture.
Right.
But going back to Cayman's lair, it's interesting to note that they come to the conclusion that the Inquisitor is the same one that initially tailed Cayman and Vin when they were trying to scam the Ministry, right?
Yeah, and I think, is this where Kelsier says that there's really only 20 Inquisitors in all of the Final Empire, and there's only a handful that are in Luthadel at any given time.
Right.
So it's very likely that this is the same Inquisitor that had kind of caught onto their scheme earlier.
Yeah. But how did he find it? I thought that they were smoking that place out, weren't they? Or maybe
they weren't at that point. Because Cayman, I don't
right.
think, had as sophisticated a crew as
Good
Kelsier.
point. They moved back out too.
Yeah. But it did kind of disturb Kelsier that it was discovered.
Right.
Kind of towards the end there.
Yeah.
And I think that Vin even asked him if they should be worried, or somebody asked him, and he didn't really have an answer that I recall.
So I have one quick thing. Sorry, but
Oh, you're good.
But Chip and I had talked a little bit earlier.
Without me?
I know. I'm sorry. It won't happen again.
We
We were conspiring. But this reminds me a little bit of The Last Airbender. So, Last
I
Airbender,
wouldn't have missed anything.
for those who have watched it, it's, again, elemental magic where you have kind of these mistings who are in charge of controlling one element, and then you have the airbender who's able to control all of the elements. But like it kind of reminds me of the third season where they actually get into some really dark stuff with blood bending, and just I pictured that same sort of thing when they came into this room full of the corpses, and just like how awful it must have smelt, and just how bad it just looked. But what could have possibly done this to destroy that many people? Was it one Steel Inquisitor, or was it 2, 3? They thought it was just one.
I think that they think it's just one, that based on the number and the whole of the final empire, that there wouldn't be that many operating on Luthadel.
I'm almost wondering if, like, to a certain... And, of course, I haven't read ahead, but I'm almost wondering if that 11th metal has the ability to control people or blood or something.
Or ATM.
Ooh.
ATM could do that, too. We don't know.
Yeah, and we don't know what the powers of an Inquisitor are. We know that they're definitely something to be wary of. I mean, Kelsier is not... He was willing to kind of lead one off the trail earlier in the book, but I don't think he wanted to engage
he's
it
got a
with
healthy respect for him, right?
Definitely.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. But kind of to that point, there's a point where I think Kelsier pulls like somebody aside, but Vin eavesdrops on him, and Sazed notices.
Wasn't Dox, was
he's
it?
He's like if he wanted us to hear, he wouldn't be but she burns tin to eavesdrop, and it enhances all the senses. So like the smell of death and everything else are all of a sudden amplified, and it just kind of illustrates how this works. We've talked before about how allomancy is, I mean, there's like structures and there's rules and there's the way things work, and it's all very well thought out, and it's very well structured.
It was Hammond, so it was Ham, and
Ham. Yeah.
That's when Sazed said, "Mistress Vin, if Master Kelsier wanted you to hear what he's saying, he would have spoken a louder voice."
Right.
But I love the fact that burning tin not only produces a desired result, but gives you an immediate consequence.
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
exactly.
Because she actually does that at the ball, too, in
Yeah.
the next chapter, where I think she was trying to eavesdrop, but then it was just the light and the music and all the sounds around her. She had to really work on trying to focus in on what she really wanted to hear and what she was using it for. So I liked that aspect a lot. I think I mentioned in the last episode that Sanderson has kind of got some annotation, or he has some annotations of kind of his thoughts when he was writing this that he's posted on his website. And he said he was a little bit unsure about, the violent nature of this chapter. And he also talked about Kelsier as a character and the violent nature of Kelsier, that he's got this charm and he's got this magnetism about him, but he's also not opposed to killing.
Right.
And he's open about it. So he wasn't sure about having a character like that, but he really thought that was needed for the story that he was telling. But then he also talks about how the imagery in this particular chapter was very violent in chapter 11, but then he juxtaposes that with chapter 12 where it was completely different. So
just the
opulence
of the ball. Anyway.
Yeah.
But before we get to the ball, and when they find Cayman's body, one of the interesting things I found on that was that when Vin follows him, she's able to soothe Kelsier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he catches on.
He doesn't immediately catch on, but he does catch on. And he's like, holy crap.
Yeah.
You just did the thing.
Yeah.
So and you don't do that to friends.
Yeah, well, he did make that comment.
Yeah. Despite what Breeze might tell you, you don't actually try to soothe your friends.
Yeah. And she made it. She came off by making it sound like it was just like a reflexive action because he was upset that she tailed him. But I don't know if that's really the case or if that's just a cover. I mean, there's
good point.
There's a lot we don't know yet.
So another thing in this one too, and Sanderson mentioned that in earlier drafts that he had been much less affected by the violence and what she saw, and that she came across a lot more callous and just, that, there's no big deal. So he said in rewrites he kind of added some more of an emotional reaction, not necessarily outwardly, but inwardly, that she was trying to be strong around everybody else and didn't show that what she was thinking inside. And he thought that really helped kind of flesh out her character a little bit more, that, she was impacted by it, but it also isn't anything that she hadn't really seen before. Death isn't something that was foreign to her, that she'd seen it living on the streets, but she hadn't really seen this level of violence before, I think, was what he was trying to get at.
But it was definitely a different view for her, even from the streets. Just that different sort of sense of wow, this fight is real.
Yeah, and it was more, in the streets she'd see starvation, or she might see, somebody murdered somebody for food or something. But this wasn't,
was like senseless almost.
This was
like vengeance.
Somebody took pleasure in this almost.
Yeah. They keep building up these Inquisitors, and I really hope that at some point they go into more of their backstory or what they are.
So I have a couple of open-ended questions. I'm not expecting answers, but I just want to pose them.
42.
Okay, you answered all questions in the universe.
So we have like the Obligators, we have the Inquisitors, we have the Lord Ruler. There's got to be some sort of like a hierarchy there that I don't understand, and I want to know what that is. And I'm sure we're going to get there.
I'm sure.
And the next question I have is not necessarily related to anything that's happened in these sets of chapters, but as I've been reading, and there was one scene, and it might have been in chapters 9 and 10, where Kelsier was on like the roof, and it was a flat roof, and he made the observation that most roofs are pitched because they don't have to like shovel the ash off. But with the constant ash fall, do you suppose like there is an impact to like life expectancy, like how old?
I would think
increased
so.
Mortality rate,
increased mortality rate,
increased
like respiratory issues, things like that. I mean, because if the ash is constantly falling, you're breathing that stuff in, right? And there's got to be an impact, or maybe not. I don't know, but that's just my impression.
It does make you kind of wonder because if the life expectancy is shorter, they had talked about how the Ska have been imprisoned or enslaved for 1,000 years. I mean, who's to say it hadn't been substantially shorter, but just because so many generations have gone by of people dying early, maybe it hasn't been as long as we thought.
Yeah, could be.
Definitely.
Anyway, just a couple of things that as I was reading, I wanted to point out. So.
Yeah. One other thing I read in the annotations that I thought was interesting is that Sanderson's, he originally they weren't called Obligators and Inquisitors, but he called them the Steel Priesthood. Was what he originally called the Steel Ministry? And for some reason, I had Judas Priest in my head, just thinking of metal priest things. But he made the change, and
was it like Halford Judas Priest?
Oh yeah.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah.
Right.
But he didn't want to like race it be something stereotypical, so he kind of worked through some iterations, and I think where he landed was great. I think the whole Steel Ministry,
it works.
Gives this ominous foreboding that this kind of ever-present entity that kind of is supernatural to some extent, and we don't know what their capabilities are, what powers they really possess, but the Inquisitor, and just the visual of the Inquisitor with the steel spikes for the eyes, and it just is creepy. But,
yeah, I mean that might be an understatement, but I get you.
Yeah. And I saw some. We should dig up some images. There were some good paintings and images online, or just fan art of what they might look like. But
why don't we get off the creep and go to the ball?
All right.
Are we good with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we've kind of covered that chapter pretty good.
Yeah.
So,
I like, the first thing I like is that, so I don't know if this was specifically targeted, but it feels like it had to be in Kelsier's mind that he robbed Keep Venture just a couple of months ago, and now the first ball that Vin is going to attend is at Keep Venture.
Yeah.
And they're the highest. In the prior chapter, they had talked about the hierarchy. Or 2 chapters ago, they talked about the hierarchy, and Venture is like the highest of the high.
Yeah, they were the highest of the great houses.
Yep.
Or the highest ranking of the great houses.
Yeah. So, I thought one of the things that was pretty interesting as Vin is, like, in this noblewoman's dress, right? Where she is...
Yeah, she's got, like, sapphires and isn't blue, I think, the way they described it.
Yeah, but there was, like, a paragraph or two where it was just devoted to, like, this dress. And it's like, this is, like, the closest we've gotten to, like, Robert Jordan's level of, like, explaining...
Yeah.
what the women are wearing.
Yeah.
Right?
Kind of like when Martin describes food.
Right,
It's-
yeah.
But I think it really shows kind of the lavish side of Luthadel and the nobility. And
Yeah.
just
No,
that
it does.
It's it's important to know that these things are important to the aristocracy. You know.
But
The look.
it's... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying the look and how,
Yeah.
she feels so uncomfortable in this dress.
Right.
And just with her haircut and everything else.
But one of the things that goes through your head is like, I've got those 3,000 boxings. I could get a lot of money for these clothes.
Exactly.
Holy smokes! If I bolt now, I'm set basically for life.
Yeah.
Right.
But this is, I think, the point where she's like, no, this group seems to trust each other, and I need to see how this plays out.
Right.
And I think I talked about this the last episode, where it's like, she wants to bolt, but she also wants to see if
how
this
it
is
plays out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think
if her brother is right, or if this hope that she's maybe starting to find is actually true.
Yeah, because one of the parts I underlined here was where she's going through that thought process, and she hears Reen's voice in her head telling her that these men are all fools.
Right.
Don't listen to them.
Right.
But she's still it says, she's still tempted by the possibility that of what Kelsier and the others offer to her.
Yeah.
That that there's something here. She can't quite put a finger on it, but she's willing to stick it out.
Well, and another thing I find is very interesting is that she's starting to like voice apprehension about this to Kelsier.
Yep.
And I think that really speaks to like the development of her character, that she's now in a place where she trusts at least Kelsier enough to say, hey, I'm not totally comfortable. Like that that's admitting weakness, and like 2, 3, 4 chapters ago that would have been...
She doesn't show weakness at
Well,
all.
she hardly spoke
chapters
at
ago.
all,
Right.
To anyone.
Right.
It was just, it was her inner monologue. But I think that goes to, I think what we talked about last episode is just this evolution of Vin as a character, where she's gaining some of this self-confidence. She doesn't have, she's not entirely self-confident, but there's, with the allomantic abilities and some of this other, she's really coming out of her shell.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and then we get to the ball, and there's a moment there where you think the entire thing is going to fall apart.
Yeah.
Early
Because
on, yeah.
she gets in there with the dress, and Sazed's at her side, and she's just like, oh crap.
Yeah, and she's like not remembering anything that
Right.
she's been trained on, and all
like
this stuff that
like
they've
she
worked
makes
on.
notice that Sazed is like starting to like be like, oh shit.
Yeah, he's
as well.
freaking out too.
He's starting to freak
And
out.
I think it's at that point that she realizes that really she's still hiding.
That's her mask
She's still-
is this dress.
They
and
see
this
her as
haircut.
Vinette Renault and
Mhm.
not as Vin, and she's got this dress and this makeup and this hair, and
She's not.
she's
as
hiding right in front of their eyes. I
Right.
think is what she says.
Which is funny because I totally get that with like my wife Michelle, because she is a very introverted person. She doesn't like having her picture taken.
What?
I know, it's hard to believe.
Crazy.
But when she is cosplaying, when she's on the floor at PCC, she loves having her picture taken. She
Yeah.
like
Oh, really?
when she is
Yeah.
masked as someone else, she is perfectly fine with whatever. She's
because they aren't seeing her as her.
exactly.
Right.
Interesting.
Well,
Very introverted behavior.
And I think
Yeah.
what that does is it kind of illustrates, Brandon Sanderson's understanding of the human condition, which I think he has a very firm understanding of.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to bring up too, right before they get to the ball, so they're in a carriage ride on their way to the ball, and Kelsier just pops in.
Yeah.
But the one thing that he talks about is that he, it becomes apparent that he wants to start a war between the great houses.
Mm-hmm.
And he says it's something that hasn't happened in over a century. So I think that gives you more, that some of the stuff that he's doing by, robbing the great houses and creating kind of this
Like
instability,
the
this
raids
distrust
and things like
between
that.
the houses, because,
Yeah.
as far as the houses know, there are no ska Mistborn.
Right.
They don't realize that there are.
Right.
So it must be another house that's doing this
Well, I mean,
stuff.
and it kind of goes back to what I said in the last episode, where Vin and Kelsier, when they're out, can kind of do whatever the heck they want.
Yeah.
Because nobody knows
Nobody's gonna
that they're
challenge them on
there,
it.
that they exist.
Exactly.
Everybody assumes it's another house's Mistborn that's popping around the rooftops at night. So, for the moment, they enjoy that luxury.
Yeah.
I don't
think it's
that's
gonna
going
last
to last.
long. Nope.
Yeah. But once she kind of realizes, going back to the ball, that this is her mask, like, she calms down, she remembers what she's supposed to remember, and she settles into the role, I think, very well.
Yeah. And and she starts to kind of pick up on things. So she's watching the obligators kind of work and realizing that the role that they play, that they're kind of the Lord Ruler's eyes on the nobility, that they're kind of keeping an eye on things for him.
They're not
like she makes the comments that the garrisons
things.
and the guards keep track of the ska, and the obligators kind of keep track of the noblemen.
But she also finds or notices one obligator that is very familiar to her.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes her a minute. But she does come to realize that as her father, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it felt a little sudden and kind of dropped in there.
I would agree.
But then I was thinking, I mean, how else would you introduce that? Because they have talked about her father must have been someone with the nobility or somebody, because, her mother was not a great person from what I remember early on. But, somebody in her family must have had some noble blood. So, I mean, it makes sense. And that, if she's only 15, then, he's probably still alive. So.
Right. Yeah.
Sure.
One of the things that I thought was interesting, and what I find when I'm taking these notes is that when there are revelations about the Lord Ruler, I tend to take more detailed notes on that. But when she's looking at the stained glass,
I actually wrote that in my notes too. The deepness.
There's a visual representation of the deepness.
And I think we've only referenced the deepness a couple of times before, but
it was back in chapter 6. Okay. That the Lord Ruler saved humanity from the deepness, but
that's what I didn't know. Is the deepness like hell or a damnation of some sort?
But it's described as, and this is a direct quote from the book, formless with tentacle-like masses creeping across several windows,
almost like the mists.
Yeah, and then alongside this brilliantly colored depiction of the Lord Ruler. So.
Well, and the other interesting thing, too, is after her dinner and she goes up to the balcony and she's looking down on the ballroom floor, and it's still the mosaic or the pattern looks like mists again, where it's the tendrils and the or tentacles of mists that are kind of enveloping.
But what I find myself asking, and I think maybe Vin echoed the same thought, was, did this actually happen? Did the Lord Ruler actually do this? Or is this something to kind of elevate his legend?
Is it the mythology? And it goes back to the Sazed character and all this information that he's collected. So is this all part of the Lord Ruler's mythology? Or is it the factual history of something that he actually did?
Good question. Good question.
But when she's up on that balcony, I thought it was pretty interesting because she's had like 3 or 4 guys like come and ask her to dance, and she's like, nope, shut that shit down.
And Sazed said that it was probably normal that it's her first ball.
She'd be overwhelmed,
and she'd be, because she's supposed to be kind of this country bumpkin. I think that kind of came in, and it's her first exposure to this lifestyle.
Right, but this Lord Elend or Elend that's up there, like, it's like
I love the way he was introduced.
I do too, because he shows absolutely no interest in her. He's just like, you're in my balcony, I want to sit up here and read.
Yeah.
You do whatever.
He shows no interest, but he also knew that she had turned down other nobles that asked her to dance.
She was.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there was there's a comment in here where he talked about. She asked about House Venture, and she's like, "You don't like House Venture, then?" He said, "They're an ostentatious lot, even for high nobility. They can't just have a party; they have to throw the best party. Never mind that they run their servants ragged, setting it up, and beat the poor things in retribution when the hall isn't perfectly clean the very next morning. And we find out at the very end of the chapter that he is the heir to House Venture.
Right,
You know?
right.
So he's basically commenting on his own house. But the fact that he understands the ska, or seems to have
He
recognizes the ska and the...
But does he,
hard
or
life
is it a show?
I don't know.
Right.
I feel like it's real, that he sees them.
But because he makes the comment that her terraceman is looking for her.
Yeah.
And as Vin and Sazed are, on their way out, and she's explaining who he is, and he's like, "Oh crap!"
Yeah.
Yep.
But she looks up, and I think she burns tin as she's leaving.
Yes.
And she's convinced that like he's got his book open, but he's watching her as she's leaving, which leads me to believe that he might have been fact finding and not just up there randomly.
Yep.
Or
I don't know. I mean, and the fact that I guess we don't know what books he was reading.
Sure.
And,
yeah.
You know, but he did seem very interested.
Well,
in
he did
books
say
and
He
books.
said which book.
He did
but-
say
Yeah,
the
he
book,
did say it, but I don't know. I guess we don't know the
have no
content of
context,
the book.
yeah.
Right.
But I guess based on the way he reacted and the way he talked about the ska and the way he talked about his house, I mean, maybe he was being self-deprecating and trying to win her over to figure something out. But I also feel like, I feel like he was somewhat genuine. And I don't know. I'm curious. I want to see more. I want to know more about Elend.
Well, I'm sure we'll find out coming forward.
I hope
Next
so.
couple chapters.
Yeah, hopefully. All right, let me see if I've got anything else here, but I think that hit the high points from my notes. Yeah, no,
in the annotation that Sanderson did, he also said that Elend is one of his favorite characters of the series, and based on that, I'm assuming that he plays a bigger role going forward. If he's one of the favorite characters of the author, that
true.
Yeah.
this isn't the only time that we see Elend.
That makes sense.
Elend. I said
We will
Elend,
find out.
Whatever.
All right.
Maybe somebody will comment and tell us how it's supposed to be pronounced,
I hope
and
so.
then going forward, we will do it correctly.
Like Sazed.
Right.
Pretty good.
Okay. I think that wraps up our conversation on 11 and 12. We are the Doctors Who Podcast. You can find us at TDW Podcast on Instagram and Twitter, Facebook.com/TDW Podcast. And then lastly, you can visit us on our website, which is www.tardiscast.com. Not only do we have links to videos, as well as some of the partners that we've worked with in the past, but we also have a blog that is updated kind of regularly.
Quasi-regularly.
I mean,
if someone would want to read along and
Yep.
purchase the book, is there a way?
There is, yes. In the description, we will have a link to an Amazon page where you can purchase the book. If you are checking it out from the library, or you borrowed it from a friend and you want it for yourself, you can click on that link. We get a small kickback that allows us to get a better space,
Better
some more
equipment.
equipment. Maybe makes me a little prettier.
But
What?
awesome.
Oh,
What?
yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you like what you've heard, the subscribe button is
Somewhere
down there somewhere.
Down there?
Please click it. We would appreciate that very much, and we look forward to joining you. No, you joining us. My gosh, what did
In
we
this
put
together.
in this? What did we do then?
Very soon.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
All right.
We look forward to you joining us next week as we talk about chapters
13 and 14.
13,
14.
14.
14. Thank you. I almost said 12 and 13, but that was not right.
Yeah. All right.
Awesome.
I'm going to leave now before I... Yeah.
We'll let
Yeah.
Brian
Brian,
take us out.
take us away.
Allons-y.